2007 BMW 330Ci PCV system, or oil separator system. I'm going to walk you through the process of changing that out. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. So it has like several names: PCV, oil trap, oil separator, but it's all underneath the intake manifold here, and this is part of the system here. We're going to replace the entire system, so I'm going to walk you through that process. And we're going to start by removing the air snorkel here, the whole air cleaner assembly, and the air intake boot here. We'll take all that apart, and the snorkel is held on by a couple clips here. Pop that off, and then you'll take out these two tins here and unbolt your mass air here and unplug your wire, and the whole assembly will come apart. And you'll also, on the wiring harness, there's a little rubber tab here. It's attached to the air box. We'll pull this off too, and then the whole air cleaner assembly will come out. So the air cleaner came out as one assembly like that. So now that we got that done, this cowling piece up here, and we're going to remove this top cover. So this is where the cabin air filter is. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these tabs and turn them quarter turn to the left, and then this hole will pop up, and you pull that off. Go ahead and pull the cabin filter out. And next we're going to, this is battery cables that run across, and I found it easier just to pop these little tabs here and take this cover off, and then pull the cables out of the loom here. And then after that's done, we're going to remove the Torx that are here on the back of the cowling, and the whole assembly will slide out. So like I said, I just popped this little cover off, and then I pull the wires out of the loom. And the T27 Torx, you just pull them out. The bolts don't come all the way out of the thing. And once you get that out, the whole cowling pulls out just like this. Now we're going to remove the two tins on the top cover and remove the cover. And most of the time they have little plastic covers over those tins, and you have to pick those out, but this car came in missing. So now that the top cover's removed, the reason why we removed it is we're going to replace this hose that runs along. It goes over here to the intake, on the top of the intake. We're going to replace that. So, but before we get to that, the next step is to, we need to remove this, this little, it controls the intake airflow inside it, so we need to remove this motor. So first we're going to start by this electrical connector. There's a little squeeze tab, you just push in and pull up, and pull the electrical connector off. And you're going to take the torque out here. I believe it's a T27 also, and then there's another torque, a little underneath right about here. You're going to take that torque out, and then this little motor will slide out, and you set it aside. So now that you got the intake runner motor out, you want to inspect this little rivet on the end of it. I've seen these where this little metal rivet will break off, and it'll get sucked through the intake of the motor and do some serious damage to the motor. So if this is any way compromised or in bad shape, replace this part. And the bolts that held it in were T40s. Torx. Okay, now that we got that off, the next step is we're going to remove the intake boot here. And right here is the little hose clamp that holds, it goes to the idle air control motor. So we're going to take that off. And once you get this slide back, right behind it is the main hose clamp that holds the intake boot on. And I like to use this little flex screwdriver bit, and you can bend it in there and get to the hose clamp and take it off. It's really easy. If not, you may have to use wobbles or whatever, but you can get it off. So you want to take it off at the throttle body. So with the little boot for the idle air control motor bent out of the way like so, right below it on the back side, let's see if I can get it in here where you can see, there's the clamp for the hose, so it's right about there, and you twist that off right there. And you also pry this hose out of the intake boot here. You got to be careful because this little port here likes to break off. And then now that you got your intake boot off, I like to do is I like to inspect it for cracks, because these have been known to split. So inspect it for the condition of it, and if it's in bad shape, whatever, order the new one. Okay, now that the air boot's off, we're going to unplug the electrical connector for the idle air control motor, unbolt the tin that's here, unbolt the tin that's here, unplug the vent valve for the PCV, for the evap system, and we're gonna take the T40 Torques that are out here and here, and actually remove the whole idle air control motor. And this wiring harness will fall back. And also a little below on the dipstick here, you're going to take the 13mm bolt out here that's on the engine mount. Take that bolt out, and this dipstick will swing out of your way a little bit and give you room to pull the wiring harness down. So once you get the two 40mm Torques, or T40 Torques out, out of the idle air control motor, just pull it straight out and remove it from the car. And then you got the dipstick unbolted. Don't take it out, just unbolt it. And then you got the wiring harness. Now you got all this movement. And also on the EVAP purge valve here, it's on a little mount here. It's just rubber mounted. You just pull it straight out toward you and set that. Just leave it hanging in there. Next, we're going to take the two 13mm bolts that hold the power steering reservoir. Take those out and just set the reservoir over here on the out of the way. So now that we got the power steering reservoir just pulled out of the way, we're going to go ahead and unplug the oil pressure switch, and we're going to unplug the alternator right here. And the reason why we're going to here in a little bit, we're going to get our hands up in here, and we're just making a little bit of room. And also there's another pressure switch on the back right here, a little lower. So we're going to unplug that one also, and just kind of let them hang there. And then after we do that, we're going to remove the four 10mm bolts that hold the throttle body on. And we're not going to unplug or anything. We're just going to take the bolts out, and then we're going to pull it back and pull it into this area here as far as we can. Okay, now that we got the throttle body unbolted, just set it aside. You also have to order the gasket. The O-ring actually goes on there. And now I'm going to take off this little mount, this little bracket that held the EVAP purge valve on. So it's 220 T27 Torques right here. I'm going to take those off, take this bracket out, and then that'll give you plenty of access to put your hands up in there and do what we need to do this job. So those were T25 Torques. So this is what the bracket looks like. So go ahead and take that out and set it aside. Okay, so now this is the new oil trap and all the hoses attached to it. When I do these jobs, I do everything is attached to it. That way, if you break one of these little clips, because they get hard and they get, they break really easy. So it's just best to just order everything and do everything as one piece. And doing it that way, you don't have to worry about. I actually break a lot of these tabs, these little clips, and break them off, and then get them out of the car. So with that said, we're going to start by removing this vent line first, attached to the valve cover. And I like to just put a little flat blade screwdriver in there and break the little tabs off, slide it off. And I'll do the same thing below on the oil separator. I'll break the tabs off and then work this one out. So I just snap the tabs off like so, and then pull it out. And next we're going to tackle this top vent one. So I actually leave this is two-part hoses here. So right here, the same thing. We got the little tabs. We're going to break those little tabs off. And then all the way on the other side of the valve intake here, follow the hose around and carefully break the tabs off there and pull the hose off. The tool I like to use to break these little tabs, I'm speaking of, is this little. It's actually pretty long. It's actually a radiator hose removal tool. And I use them and I stick them in there and I give them a little twist and I pop them off. So this is the one hose here. It goes here, and it actually broke in half right here in the middle. It's actually made it easier. So we'll take that out, and then you break the tab that's here. And pull this one back like that. Now that you got that done, you're going to reach your hand under the intake here, and the hose that goes, which is this one up here. So right here, you're gonna you can snap it off, and usually what happens when you try to snap it off, or you can take your screwdriver in there in the tunnel, and same thing, it has the same type of clips thing, and you can break those off and then pull this whole hose assembly out. So I barely even pried on it, and it just broke in my hand. That's what I mean. These things get really brittle, so you change everything. So that was the one here. And if you look, we still may have to get the rest of it out. You see it in there, so you can pry it. You can pry those off and get the rest of it out now. Okay, now on the bottom of the oil separator is this hose here. It's under the intake, and that goes around and is attached to the dipstick. What I like to do is just get a razor blade and cut it in half. Or usually it's already broken. Usually when you do these, this is one of the parts where it's broken. It's very soft and about to break on this one. So what we do is you cut it in half, and then down at the other end you slice it and pull it off the dipstick tube. So this is the hose. I made the slit down there at the bottom where it mounts to the dipstick and just broke it off at the top. So now we're going to remove the final part, which is this one. It's the actual separator underneath the intake, and it's held on by two T25 Torx. So it's in there like this underneath the intake. So you'll take the two out, and when you get it unbolted, it'll kind of twist and rotate out like that. So now that I got the old one out here, you can see at the very base there's a crack. And this one was leaking vacuum. That was the reason why we were changing this. But okay, so now we're done removing all the parts we're going to remove. It's time to start going back together. One of the things you're going to have to do is on the old one, there's a vacuum cap. Transfer that over to the new one, and then we're gonna. I like to put a little thin, fresh layer of motor oil on all the seals. Just a thin layer, and that helps push them on. And then we're going to go ahead and mount, after we get the vacuum cap switch over, we're going to go ahead and put this one back in there, with make sure that nipple's pointing down, put it in there and bolt it in. So this is the vacuum cap I'm talking about, so you want to transfer that over to the new one. If you forget that, you'll have a vacuum leak when you're done. So the new oil separator is mounted in. Now we're going to start putting the hoses back on it. Anyway, I wanted to tell you, mounting the bottom screw first was easiest. Start the screw and then run it most of the way in, and then start the top screw and then run it in. That was the easiest way to do it. So now that we got that done, we're going to start putting I like to put the hose on that goes through the dipstick to the bottom on first. So when you put this in, you're going to route it down like so behind the motor mount and rotate it in. And then on the new part, you're just going to put it on the thing and push it on, and then take this in and kind of put it on the end of the dipstick tube where it came off, and just push it on, and that's it. Okay, the next piece we're going to put on looks like this. So we're going to slide it down, and as you get down, you're going to twist in like that, and then you're going to hook push the bottom in first. So now that I got it routed through, I put my hand over here like this and push it on here. And you may have to use a flat blade screwdriver, a long one, to get it. Just listen for the click. You'll hear it click when it's okay. Now that you got the bottom part of this hose clipped on, don't put the top on just yet. We're going to take the one that went around to the back of the intake here, and it has the serrated teeth side that goes on the nipple here, and the one with the little squeeze clamp type here goes in the back here. So we're going to plug it in the back first, plug that on, and then we're going to lift this up a little bit and plug this on, and then push it down into here, and then clip the top of the hose on. The reason why we start this hose first is once it's in there, it's actually hard to get it around this corner to get it to go in. So we'll lift it up a little bit. You start this hose and you push it down, and then you push it on. It is a tight fit, but it will fit. And then I like to give everything a little snug pull to make sure everything is connected. Okay, the last piece is this long tube that goes from the valve cover itself down to the bottom of the oil separator. So remember to put a little lube on these seals here, and then the one with the 90-degree angle goes to the top of the valve cover. The one with the little 45 goes down to the oil separator. So you're going to route it through here, and this new one. It's flexible, so you can bend it a little bit and move it a little bit however you want to. But I always recommend when you push the bottom one on, is try to support the oil separator with one hand and use the other hand to push it on. Because it does flex pretty easily, and you can break the new oil separator. So try to support it with one hand while you push on with the other hand. So you can see the tube here goes down and then it goes on the bottom and just pushes on. And you will have to flex the hose a little bit to get it turn the corner and push it on, and then listen for the click and give it a little tug and make sure it's done. And then the last step would be to take this one and put it in your valve cover here and push it on till it clicks. Now all the oil separator, crankcase, ventilation, everything is installed now. Now we're going to reinstall the throttle body. So you're going to put your new gasket in there and then put your 410mm bolts back in and bolt that back up. Okay, now that the throttle body is mounted up, we're going to put our idle air control motor back in. And there's just a rubber grommet underneath here, right there, and that port right there just pushes into it, and then we'll bolt the two T40 Torx back on it. So after we got the idle air control motor bolted in, go ahead and put your this holds the wire loom in, and put the go ahead and plug the idle air control motor in. So after I plugged in my idle air control motor and put the bracket back on, I'm gonna go ahead and plug in all my electrical connectors I disconnected. So the 2-wire oil pressure switch goes on the top of the housing here, and the single wire goes on the bottom oil pressure switch. And then plug in your alternator, and then after that we're going to remount our bracket that held the evap purge valve. Mounting the bracket for the evap purge valve, go ahead and put that rubber grommet back on its spot, plug the electrical connector back on, and now we can go ahead and bolt up put the bolt here and the nut that held the wiring harness back on. Then we can swing our dipstick back into place and put the 13mm bolt back on there. Now that the dipstick's bolted back up, go ahead and mount your power steering reservoir and put the two 13mm back in. So now it's time to put the intake boot back on. So we'll put that back on and try to route the cable, the hose clamp in a position where you can get to it really easily and tighten it back up. And then after you get that tightened up, then you'll put the little boot for the idle air control motor. You put that on with the hose clamp on too, and tighten that one up too. Then you can go ahead and shove it. Put this hose to push it back into the boot here. Okay, now that we got our intake boot on, we're going to put our intake runner motor here. We're going to put that in, so you'll slide it in and put it in. We can start the two T40. Okay, now we're going to put our air cleaner back in. It goes in like this and rotates in, and those little slots down there line up with the slots on the air box, and plug in your mass air and put the 210s back on. And then after that we'll put the snorkel back on and the top engine cover. Now you're going to put your cowling back in, and it just slips in like so, and lines it back up. Tighten up your Torx, and then we're going to clip in the electrical connectors and put the cap back on. Put your cabin filter back in, put the cap back on, do little squeeze tabs and lock them down to place. And that pretty much completes the job. We're just going to start the car up, double check it, make sure there's no check engine lights on, when you run smooth, and you're done. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos and remind you to subscribe, and thank you again.